Vancouver Canucks didn't make the postseason after a severe fall off in the second half, and the reports confirming that John Tortorella will be relieved of his duties later on today. No real surprise. Yeah. I guess the question is,
what the
why
surprise
now?
is? Yeah, the surprise is why not just do it when they fired Gillis? That's, to me, is, but perhaps ownership, the Aquilini family wanted to have more of an objective look at it and trusted Trevor Linden to do that. At no time, and we know Trevor a little bit, at no time do we ever look at Tortorella and say, yeah, that's his type of guy. Not a chance. No surprise here, guys. None whatsoever.
I think what has happened also is, as Linden does his evaluation of the organization and he starts to talk to GMs and interview GMs, I think that would be obvious to him, that how do I put in a young Jim Benning or even an experienced GM and saddle them with that situation. I think that was a telltale at the end of the day. And, let's not kid ourselves. Trevor Linden had major conversations with the owners about this situation before he ever took this job. There's no way that wasn't the number one conversation between Trevor and the Aquilinis before he even took the job.
Well, and the conversation is, are you willing to stroke the check
on
the 4 years remaining on that contract? And it's a healthy check.
Isn't it bizarre, though, that Tortorella comes in, with his Stanley Cup background, New York Ranger, reasonable success and it blows up. Things are moving really well in December. The fiasco with Calgary, and it derailed them. It's hard to believe.
I would think the fiasco against Calgary is the one that many in Vancouver can't get over.
No,
I think there's a chance that he dodges the bullet and comes back next year if that situation doesn't happen. Okay, that's embedded in all of hockey, everyone's mind, and you can't overcome that. You can't overcome the lack of composure from your head coach, who's supposed to be a leader, to do that. You can't.
It cost him.
It cost him.
It cost him dearly. And then not only did it cost him, but the team reeled from that point on. I mean, they fell apart and never recovered. And then he comes back and I couldn't believe my ears. His first game back in Detroit, he goes to the podium in his post game and said, "We got to make a lot of changes to this team. So-and-so's our best player tonight, Booth, and that's good for Booth, but bad for our team." I mean, I couldn't believe my ears. Yeah. And it just derailed, and don't think the guys in the dressing room are listening saying, what is he talking about?
And then the Luongo.
I was just going to say the Luongo Winter Classic fiasco, that was just rubbing a nose in it for no good reason.
It's hard to believe.
I would probably think the timing of this today might have something to do with Trevor Linden having a better idea who his general manager is going to be.
Yes, totally.
And that would come into play of, you know what, Trevor, I'd rather you do it than me coming in for 5 minutes, guys, and then having to do this.
I've
just
said
clean it right up, and I'm ready to jump in.
I've said it on this show for a number of years. Everybody wants to talk coaching style, coaching systems. It's so much BS. It's all about managing your group and managing and look at the Lindy Ruffs and the Barry Trotts and the Bruce Boudreaux and the Kevin McClellans. I mean, guys manage their group, and they don't let disasters like this. I know Todd lost in the playoffs, and I get that, but you manage your group within the room, and I'm telling you.
And if you do a good job,
he did a poor job of it, this guy.
You still might. Players may look behind their shoulder on the bench and say, okay, we need to make a few adjustments here. That's when the X's and O's come into play.
Yeah, sure.
One thing that puzzles me is when the Calgary Flames made their decision to bring in Brian Burke as president of hockey operations, overseeing Jay Feaster as general manager, to a man, it was
not a chance.
Yeah, that is not going to work. They said all the right things, and you got the exact same feeling with the Vancouver Canucks and bringing in John Tortorella and under Mike Gillis, that it wasn't going to work. So why can we see that and the people making the decisions seem to overlook those?
Because the owners fall in love with certain people, okay? And then the GM is caught. And it's so Mike Gillis, not to say the Aquilinis made the call, But Mike Gillis is a pretty smart guy. Mike Gillis read the tea leaves and knew who they wanted. And Mike's in a situation where he was coming off a tough couple of years, and he's got to go along with it and say, I'm going to try to make it work.
Would you have hired John Tortorella?
Not a chance I would have. Not a chance I would have hired him. And I said it the day he was hired, and I said it on Vancouver radio. But the problem is, Mike probably knew he had no choice. And I'm not saying that Tortorella that.
You don't want an email?
Here's the other factor.
You don't want to get an email?
Oh, I don't care about
Here's the other factor, too, is that as much as you want to think with your own respective organization that you've done your due diligence, there's still some people that can get wowed in an interview. Okay, they can have a meeting, and there's some guys in this hockey world that can spin it unbelievably in terms of what you're getting and what I've done in the past and how it won't happen in the future and how I've changed or how I've learned from it. I think Tortorella is a good coach. I really do. And I think at times he can be a great motivator. But he can also be a guy that can shoot himself in the foot. And I think it was a situation where the issues that he had in New York, I've looked after, and they won't happen again. The things that happened in New York, I know I can't get away with in Canada, and I'll change. I'll change with the relationship with the media, all of it. And, you know, some people can look at it and say, okay, yeah, I'm buying what you're selling. And then we saw what happened against the Calgary Flames, and it was like 10 times worse than we've ever seen maybe in New York, and we saw some bad situations with him with the media.
And he did change in a lot of respects in terms of his day-to-day involvement with the media and the broadcasters and whatnot, but you know, the blow-up against Calgary, it's just...
And then all bets are off, Scott.
No, absolutely, I don't disagree, but there was some improvements, but that was the one that killed him.
And yet, I'll disagree with you because I don't think he's a great coach. I think he's an average coach. And,
why?
And I think that there's too much there. I watched him. I know he won a Stanley Cup in Tampa Bay, and I watched them in Tampa Bay real close for 7 months, and I thought they were one of the worst coached teams in the NHL. I saw him do an okay job with the Rangers. I didn't think it was a great job he did with the Rangers, and I saw him do an average job again this year. I mean, with a pretty good hockey team, and to me, a team that got worse as the season progressed. So, you know, does that mean I don't even know the guy? I've hardly said hello to him, but I just think he's an average coach. I don't think he's a great coach. I know he won a cup. I get that. But
from what I'm told, this is not going to come as a surprise to John Tortorella.
No,
being relieved of his duties.
How could it? How could it?
If he's been awake for the last month, it shouldn't come as a surprise.
6 months.
Somewhat alert.
But you know what? Mike Gillis made a decision, whoever made the decision, and it cost Mike Gillis his job too.